My name is John Mackenzie, and my wife left me, and how I'm working on saving my marriage. Now, I'd come home after a long day at work. I'd gotten off work at about 5:30 when I opened the door to my house, and I was surprised to find a bunch of people in the house, including a friend of mine, Jim. Now, I stood there stunned as I was told my wife was leaving me, and they were there helping her pack up the stuff for her and the kids to leave. This was June 1st, 2016. Now, at this time, I did not know that this had been a long time in the planning. I stood there having a hard time comprehending what was happening as they finished packing up Tracy and the kids' stuff. Well, the nice thing about it is that she had a friend of mine, Jim, stay with me there after they left. And at the time, I had no idea where they were going or for how long. And Jim stayed with me for most of that evening. I think maybe to make sure I didn't do something stupid like maybe hurt myself. Well, at some point in the evening, I gave him a set of keys to my house so he could come and go freely and check on me at any time. Now, to this day, I still really appreciate what he did and why, and all that he and Bonnie Ann, his wife, did to help my wife and my kids during this time. Now, I don't remember much about that night except for the pain of not understanding why this was happening. I didn't go into work the next day. I spent a bunch of time crying out to God and trying to understand what was going on and why they had left. Now, there were quite a few times during the beginning part of my marriage separation that I really hoped I'd die. Not that I'd have killed myself, but I sure prayed for the Lord to take me home, to take me away from all the pain I was feeling. Because the pain and hurt just kept ripping through me like waves, making me wish I wasn't alive. I kept asking God to take me home so it would quit. They say that when someone dies, that those left behind go through the 7 stages of grief. Well, I believe that goes for what goes on during separation and divorce as well. As of right now, it's been over 4 years that we've been separated. And looking back on it for the first while, I figured it was all over except for the divorce papers. But the one thing I did have going for me is that I had God. I'm a Christian. Now, that doesn't mean I'm perfect or infallible. Far from it. But it does mean that I am a sinner who's been saved by grace. No matter how badly I screw up, God has been there for me. As a teenager, I'd asked Jesus into my life and my heart and asked him to forgive me and cleanse me from my sin. And he did. And it was at that moment I received from him a peace that told me that he would always be with me, no matter what or how rough the road. That he would love me and be with me even when I wasn't obeying or walking correctly and doing things on my own. My separation happened over 4 years ago, and that was the start of probably the roughest period of my life. When it happened, the next few months were hard, learning to do stuff on my own, taking care of bills, which I hadn't done since we got married because I'd always left it up to her. So it was a shock finding out that there was a lot of stuff that wasn't or hadn't been paid in a while. There was a lot of outstanding debts, and the town was threatening to put a lien against her house. Now, I think a lot of this was from her being scared to tell me what the finances were like because of our previous fights that we'd had about finances, and because of my anger issues. Yes, there I said it, anger issues. It's something I'm not proud of, and I regret it a lot, especially all the things which I had put her and the kids through over the years. In looking back on it now, I don't blame her whatsoever for leaving and taking the kids, as I was sometimes a real asshole. I think it was one of the best things she could have done for her and the kids. Their leaving was a real shake-up and helped me to realize what type of person I'd turned into, the type of person of which I'm not proud of in the least. At this point, we're not back together yet, but we are working towards a goal of reconciliation. She's now said divorce is not an option. We're going to work it out. Now, after we first separated, I was at the point where I didn't think it was possible that I'd ever be able to see my kids again, or that they'd even want to see me. But now, by the grace of God, He's led me through this long and arduous journey, through all this pain, heartache, tears, and frustration, and He still continues to lead me. During this, He's healed me, changed me, comforted me, all the while loving me and teaching me how to love myself, and how to forgive myself and others, and to be able to ask for forgiveness. Now, for the first while, I was very bitter until God showed me that I was a cause of a good portion of the problems. Now, I won't say 100%, because there's always two people involved and three sides to every story: his side, her side, and where the truth actually lays. But a large part of the issues stem from me, and even some of the ones that were from her side can be traced back to me and my triggering them by my attitude and my actions. Now, she's not entirely without fault, but I'm only going to talk about what I did. Now, looking back, I can understand why she did some of the things she did. But now, over 4 years later, through all God has led me through, I've learned and changed a lot, and so has she. Now, it's not been an easy or quick road, or it hasn't been so far, because the years of pain, heartache, fear, and anguish that I'd caused her and the kids doesn't vanish overnight. And that building up trust again on both sides is a long process. And because of that, sometimes I feel like I'm taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Sometimes it even feels like a bunch of steps back. But we're slowly climbing that mountain and rebuilding that level of trust. I'm building that level of trust back one little bit at a time, not only in her, but in my children as well. Now, I know this seems strange to say, but looking back, I'm glad she did what she did. It took so much courage for her to do what she did, and against all the norms of "you stay together for the kids" ideology. She did what she needed to do for the kids' sake, to get them out of what I now understand was a toxic atmosphere. Both my relationship with my kids and my relationship with my wife is taking time to heal. But with God's grace, we'll be back together soon as a family. But there are emotional scars on all sides, and emotional scars take the longest to heal, and they don't heal properly without God's grace and love. It's His love that heals scars. I'm so grateful He's doing a healing work in all of our lives. Yes, we have a bit to work out and work through, but I know God's working in our relationship because of all the things He's brought us through in the last 4 years. At the beginning of the separation, I don't know how many hours I spent on the couch in prayer, crying out to God to change her or help me deal with the pain. But instead, He started to work on me. Now, it wasn't pretty, quick, or easy, and sometimes it was downright painful, but God was gracious. But now, looking back on it, as hard and as lonely as it was, it forced me to rely on God even more and trust Him more. I'd gone forward one Sunday in our church for prayer, and I was prayed for by some of the elders in our church. And it was at that point where I was freed from a demonic hold over my life. I felt immediate freedom from something that had held sway over me for years. The change I felt and how it affected me was immediate, and I give God the glory for it. And I actually started using the gift of tongues again that I'd received so many years before. Now, with all this work God was doing in my life and all these other changes happening in me, I'd expected other people, like my family, to be able to see those changes that had happened. But it's not always that case. Sometimes it takes a long time for them to see, let alone trust any changes that they see. Especially the people that you've hurt. It may take them a long time, and they'll want to see that the change isn't just a temporary thing, but it's real and permanent. Later on, at another one of our church services, we had a group come down from Edmonton, Canada, to our church to minister. Now, during this time, I was prophesied over a couple of times, where the Lord was just encouraging me that through all that I was going through, He was right there with me. It was also during the service, one of the members of the group mentioned a book on the Courts of Heaven by Robert Henderson. And what they said about it piqued my interest. So I started going on YouTube and watching his sermons. And I can only say it was God's guidance directing me to those videos and later on his books. It created a significant change in my life. I started going through all Robert Henderson's Courts of Heaven videos and dealing with the stuff in my life and in my bloodline. Using what I was taught in those videos helped me deal with a lot of the garbage in my life and in my family background. I continued going through these things over and over again, digging deeper and deeper. I dealt with each of these things one by one, like peeling an onion, getting down layer by layer by layer, each layer dealing with more and more garbage from my past and from my family bloodline. And it's been amazing, to say the least. Now, without God opening my eyes to the courts of heaven and what I had to do to deal with a lot of that garbage, I don't think I'd be here today. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt that if I'd not found the teaching on the courts of heaven, that there would not have been any chance that I would be this far advanced in mine and my wife's reconciliation. And I wouldn't have had this chance to rebuild that relationship with my children again. Now, I've realized over these last few years, during the times I've really had a chance to talk with my wife about the things I did, I realized how much I'd hurt them and how much I'd lost their trust. Now, it's been a long road to get back to where I am now, and it might still be a bit of a road ahead to get to the point where we can be a family again, all under one roof. But because of God's grace and the teaching on the courts of heaven, I've been slowly able to rebuild the relationship with my kids and with my wife. Because 4 years ago, to be where I am now in my relationship with my family was only a dream. Now, through all of this, I believe it's more about you changing yourself and them being able to see the difference in you. But you can also use the courts of heaven to stand in intercession for your spouse and your children, to deal with the stuff in their bloodlines, to break things off of them that they may not even know that it's affecting them. Doing things in intercession for them until they can do it for themselves. I know I spent a lot of time in prayer over my family in the courts. And God has been gracious to let me see changes bit by bit in my spouse and my kids, but most of all, He's allowing them to see the changes in me. I love my wife and kids beyond measure, and that's why I keep going through Robert Henderson's different videos and books and gleaning new ideas and insights and wisdom on dealing with this stuff. His stuff is not specifically for those going through a marriage separation, but it's one of the many things it can be used for. And I want to thank the Lord for those gifts He has given me and the restoration I've seen coming from that. Now, I would not want to wish separation and the possibility of divorce on anybody. This is one of the hardest things that anyone can go through. This is why I started this YouTube channel. It's to help others going through a marriage separation and to specifically help them with all the things they have to deal with while they're going through it, so they're able to have a better relationship with their spouse going into divorce. And so that if they have kids, they can co-parent better for their kids' sake, as well as become a better version of themselves for their next relationship. My name is John Mackenzie, and this is Kingdom Principles. On this channel, we'll be discussing all things regarding marriage separation, whether you're just going into it, already separated, or separated and trying to save your marriage, or finalizing your divorce. This channel is for you, your source of information on surviving your marriage separation. And if you find this video helpful, please like and subscribe and click on the notification bell. Then you'll be notified when we upload any new videos. Now, click on the link down in the description to get our free report on the 7 things not to do when going through a marriage separation. Our subscribe button is up here in the corner. And please check out our videos.